I don't expect that we're going to get through a lot tonight. You should have gotten the handout for chapter 4. But what I want to do, first of all, I want to go through the chart with you up to where we're at. That way you get a feel as to how to use this and to go along with it. Because I'll go back to this every single time we meet. That way you know where we're at. And someone asked the question, well, how can you really put together a chart for Revelation? It's here, it's there, it's the past, present, future. How can you really do that? Understand this, that the book of Revelation is a book of sequence. First comes 1, then comes 2, then comes 3. A, B, C, D. It doesn't go from A to Z and then to F and then to G. It's one thing right after the other, and it happens in a series of events. Okay? So if you open it up, this is what you get. And it's titled The Book of Revelation. Some of you may have seen the series of videos that were put out, probably 1980. One was called The End of the Age. One was called The Prodigal Planet. I can't remember. There were 4 of them, but it was very similar to the Left Behind series, but they were very old. The very first scene I always remember because it scared me to death. I was so young when I saw it. It was a woman that her husband was in the military, and when she got up out of bed, the first thing he does in the morning is he went in and shaved, combed his hair, brushed his teeth, put on his uniform. Well, she went in, his razor is laying in the sink with the water running and his clothes laying on a pile on the floor. She rushes outside, she sees cars piled up one after the other. And in that series of videos, this is the chart that they use. And of course, it would take up this whole entire podium, or this whole entire platform. But this is where we get it from. And I've studied this chart for a long time. I really like it. I do wish that it was a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it any bigger. But we'll go through it point by point. The very first thing there, if you notice, it says the book of Revelation over here on the right-hand side, right where the orange is at. Everybody see that? Okay. The book of Revelation, that's where we're starting. That's why it says that. And it says, right next to it, above it, it says the ascension. Well, what's the ascension? The ascension is that of Christ. Okay? And it says it's the salutation in verses. And if you look, it even gives you the reference numbers right above. And it says Revelation, and it says 1 verses 1 through 8 in the orange. Everybody see that? Okay. And then the next thing, or right above that, it says, what thou hast seen. See, it breaks it down for you. This is what you have seen. This is the past, or this is the present. Okay? And then we'll go into the future events. And it's called the vision, and it gives the vision of the 7 candlesticks. The 7 candlesticks were what? Churches. Very good. The next thing we go to, Ephesus. And it says it's the backslidden church. Then Smyrna. And then we have Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea. We've already gone through this, haven't we? Okay, this is chapters what? 2 and 3. Okay, this is what we just got done studying. And right underneath that, in the blue, on the bottom, it says the present age. And it says the mystery form of the kingdom, and it says the church, and the hid treasure, the nations, and so on and so forth. Referring to the church age that we're living in today. The next thing, right after Laodicea, is what we get into tonight. And it's called the heavenly vision. And if you look, go to where it says the heavenly vision there in orange. And if you go straight up to the top of the page, you see where it says rapture? Okay? And then it says the judgment seat of Christ. And it says the church. Right up here. I really wish I had this on an overhead or something. But right up here in the blue. Everybody see what I'm talking about? Okay. That's where we're at tonight. And we'll go through this chart step by step, just like we go through the book of Revelation, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And every time we get to something new, I'll bring out the chart and I'll say, this is where we're at, and you see what's happened previously, and this is what's going to be happening shortly hereafter. This is a really, really good handout to have. Bring it with you every Wednesday night, because you never know when something's going to come on the top of my head and I'm just going to say, pull out the chart and look at it. Or if you may have a question and you want to use the chart to bring up your question, use it. Okay? One interesting thing I will point out. How many of you here believe in the rapture? How many of you do not? Okay, that's good. I was sitting in class today, and I have to mention this, because chapter 4 is when we start talking about the rapture. This is when things really start to get good for those that really like this book. And I'm sitting in theology, and the professor at the opening of class, when we first started the semester, he goes, this class is going to test all that you know, or all that you think that you know. I'm going to show you what we do know about God, and I'm going to show you the things that you've been taught about God, which aren't necessarily true. And I thought, well, this could be really interesting. I could really have some fun with this professor. I could really fail the class, too, depending on how much I say. But so far, everything was going very well. Really enjoyed the class. Just thought it was really good. And at the end of class today, somebody said something about the rapture. Well, anybody that knows me knows that I pop my ears straight up. And he says, somebody had asked a question. I can't remember what the question was. But he says, now we have a lesson on that later in the semester. And I'm going to show you that what the church has been teaching for all these years, that there's actually a rapture, isn't true. What? That's exactly what I said. He didn't hear me, but I wish that he had. And he says, I'm going to show you that that's not true. And I'm going to prove it by Scripture. I thought, oh, what a fun class that's going to be. But this is where we're at, and I'm going to show you that there really is a rapture. There are 4 different ideas out there, that there is a rapture, that there isn't a rapture, that the rapture happens after the tribulation. And then the other point is that the rapture happens right smack dab in the middle of the tribulation, at the 3.5-year mark. The last 3 are not true, and I'm going to show you how. Up until chapter 4, everything's been pretty simple, hasn't it? Everybody seems to be getting it, no problems. We're all clear on everything. And that's good. Chapter 4 is when people really start to have an issue, and that's when they just stop reading it and they just put it to the side. Don't do that. No matter how difficult it is for you, keep reading it. Ask questions all you want. We'll answer them the best that we can. But chapter 4 is sometimes where people really start to have trouble. And I don't want you to. That's why I'll go as slow as we possibly can. It says here, when you meet a Bible professor, you can ask him, what's the biggest subject for controversy? And I guarantee you that his answer is going to come somewhere between Revelations chapter 4 through 22. And the reason that is because it discusses the rapture of the church. Did you hear that? There is a rapture, despite what anybody else tells you. You're going to discuss the 7 bowls, the 7 seals, the 7 vials. You're going to have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You're going to have the 144,000. You're going to have all types of judgments and condemnation upon these people that are left. And this is where there's really a lot of issues. There's a lot of controversy with this. And probably the largest one that we're going to talk about is the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to come on the scene, and there have been so many books, so many videos, so many tapes written about this guy that you could literally fill this whole entire room with. There's been more written about the Antichrist than any other subject in Scripture. There's books put out every year. There was a book put out a few years ago